This is so exciting. It's so important. These are the days that we really should not forget taking care of ourselves. You know, well, first of all, I'm Dr. Nancy O'Reilly. I'm the CEO and founder of Women Connect for Good. The mission of Women Connect for Good is very simple. Women supporting other women, but women supporting themselves. So, you know, we've had some tough times here with COVID, the upheaval in our country. And so taking care of ourselves is more important than ever. And many of us have not been doing that. As we know, we women are not the best as far as taking care of ourselves. We take care of everybody but me. So today we're going to change that and we're going to go forward. So, all right. The most important thing, and I believe this, is our sleep. You know, the benefits of sleep are so very, very important. You know, we should sleep as much as we work. I mean, we have to rejuvenate. We have to body, mind, and spirit. That's the only way we're going to rejuvenate ourselves. So if we sleep well, we feel better. You know, I even take naps. Some of the best people that you can even think of, Einstein took naps, these intellectuals that take naps. So I think I'm in good company. But again, the benefits are wonderful. When a body is rested, the brain is also functioning better. So the benefits are hard to we can't even begin to talk about the benefits, but we have somebody that's going to. So when we're rested and we rejuvenate, we feel better. It takes care of our depression, it takes care of our anxiety, and we want to take care of all that. So I'm happy today to introduce the sleep doctor, Dr. Michael Bruce. He's a renowned sleep expert, and he is going to talk about the power of sleep. Dr. Bruce is a clinical psychologist, a diplomat of the American Board of Sleep Medicine, and fellow of the American Academy of Sleep Medicine. He was recently named the top sleep specialist in California by Reader's Digest, and is on the clinical advisory board to the Dr. Oz Show, and has appeared more than 40 times. Dr. Bruce is the author of 3 books, The Power of When, The Sleep Doctor's Diet Plan, and Good Night, The Sleep Doctor's 4-week program to better sleep and better health. He adds his expertise to many, many brands, sleep brands, lectures all over the world, and has provided sleep expertise to WebMD, currently writes the Insomnia blog, and is found regularly in Psychology Today and the Share Care, as well as other media outlets, and has done over 250 interviews. I hope, Dr. Bruce, you're getting your sleep too. This is very important. We have to practice what we preach. So I want to welcome Dr. Bruce, the sleep doctor, and let's talk about getting a good night's sleep.
So thank you so much, Nancy. I'm so excited to be here. I appreciate you. So thanks for having me. Can you guys hear me okay? Are we good? Awesome, awesome, awesome. So what I thought I would do is, do I have the ability to share my screen? Is that possible? Awesome, thank you. What I thought I would do is I've put together a little bit of a slide presentation. It doesn't seem to be letting me. 1 second. There we go. Should work now. There we go. Perfect. Thank you so much. There we go. So thank you all for having me here today. My name is Dr. Michael Bruce. Dr. O'Reilly gave me a heck of an introduction. I'm hiring her moving forward from now on. She's going to be doing all of my introductions for sure. That was lovely. Thank you. But let me tell you a little bit about what we're going to be talking about today. So I'm going to break down sleep. It's not going to get complicated. It's going to be a lot of fun. You're going to learn a ton of stuff, all practical, all things that are going to be helpful for you. Don't worry. If you want to get the slides, we can make the slides available to you. There will be Q&A at the end, and I will give out my email. So if people want to connect with me later, we can do so at that time. So feel free. And I believe we're recording this. Is that correct? So, right. So for people who may not have to leave or might not get through it all, or maybe want to share this with some friends or some family members or some colleagues, please know that it is being recorded as well. So what is sleep? It turns out that sleep is made up of 2 separate systems in the brain. One is called your sleep drive. The other is called your sleep rhythm. All right, Michael, what's the difference between the two? So sleep drive is a lot like hunger, right? So I'm hungry, I'm hungry, I'm hungry. I eat something and that hunger begins to dissipate. The same holds true with sleep. When a cell eats a piece of glucose, something comes out the back end. One of those things is something called adenosine. Adenosine works its way through your system and goes to a very specific receptor site in your brain. And as adenosine accumulates, you get sleepier and sleepier and sleepier. Now, I actually am kind of a bit of a sleep geek, surprise, surprise. And I was looking at the molecular structure of adenosine, and I noticed that it was extremely similar to the molecular structure of caffeine. In fact, it was only off by one molecule, which is kind of amazing to me when you think about it, that the substance that makes you feel sleepy and the substance that makes you awake are literally off by one molecule. That's going to become important a little bit later on, so store that one in your hard drive. Sleep rhythm is also quite interesting. You ever notice, kind of like hunger, you get sleepy around, or rather you get hungry around breakfast time, around lunchtime, and around dinner time? Same holds true with sleep. Most people, at least here in North America, have a tendency to go to sleep somewhere between 10 and 11, 11:30 at night. That's their circadian rhythm for sleep. So when your sleep drive is high and your circadian rhythm is working, you sleep. But if either one of them is off, that's where you get either a sleep disorder like apnea, narcolepsy, insomnia, restless leg syndrome, things like that, or you get what I call disordered sleep, right? So it's not officially a diagnosis, but you're sitting there and you're like, my sleep quality isn't that good, or I snore, but I don't have apnea, or I only have a problem falling asleep occasionally. That's where the disordered sleep falls into play, and we're going to talk quite a bit about that. Now, you might be wondering, well, gosh, I haven't remembered everything since high school biology when I learned about sleep. So this is actually what we call a hypnogram. And so this represents sleep across the night. Orange, as you can see, represents being awake. Then light sleep is in the light gray, that's stages 1 and 2. Then deep sleep is in the darker blue, that's stages 3 and 4. Then you go back to light sleep, if you notice, to the gray, and then on into the light blue, which is represented as REM sleep. So that little dance maneuver that I just walked you through actually takes about 90 minutes. So an average sleep cycle is approximately 90 minutes. Again, log that into your hard drive here. Also, we count sleep cycles by the number of REM periods. And so you'll notice here, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 REM periods. And so that happens to be 5 is the number of average sleep cycles that we see in most humans. So remember, 90 is the cycle length, and number of cycles is 5. Again, all this is going to be important in a little while. Don't worry, there's not a test. So what do the stages do anyway, right, Dr. Bruce? Well, we can talk about the light sleep. To be fair, stage 1 is kind of a transition to sleep. Stage 2 really sets your body up for stages 3, 4, and REM sleep. Stages 3, 4 is your physical restoration. This is the wake up and feel great sleep, okay? This is where we see all of kind of your important bodily functions occur, like your blood pressure dropping, your respiration slowing. Something called growth hormone is emitted during stage 3, 4 sleep. Now, to be clear, if you are ever wondering, is there such a thing as beauty sleep? This is it right here. Stage 3, 4 sleep is what we would consider to be beauty sleep, because this is where true cellular repair occurs. Now, I'm going to digress for just a second, because one of the things that's important to understand about stage 3, 4 sleep is this is where immune function really hits its highest point. So we want as much stage 3, 4 sleep as we can get because of this growth hormone that you see me talking about here. This is what it does is it sends a signal to our brain to create these things called killer T cells. Now, again, if you don't remember all the way back to high school biology, killer T cells are white blood cells that your body produces to fight virus. I think it's a good idea that we all fight viruses right about now. So the more stage 3, 4 sleep that you can get, the better. So anything that hurts stage 3, 4 sleep also is going to be hurting immune function, just so that you're aware. Most of the stage 3, 4 sleep actually occurs in the first part of the night. That's important too, because things like alcohol and caffeine really affect the first part of the sleep, not as much the last part. REM sleep, no, it's not the band from Athens. That's my best joke, by the way, just letting you know. Anybody out there who's as old as me, I'm 53 years old. I actually went to the University of Georgia, where, and it's in Athens, Georgia, which is where the band REM comes from. So I was able to actually see them live on many an occasion. They were amazing, but we're not talking about the band, we're talking about sleep. So REM stands for rapid eye movement sleep. Now remember, stage 3-4 beauty sleep was your physical restoration. This is your mental restoration. Interestingly enough, we have now discovered that this is where you move information from your short-term memory to your long-term memory. So your brain creates an organizational substructure, kind of like a filing cabinet. And so when your brain wants to remember something, it has to find the right cabinet, the right drawer, and the right file to put the information in. Well, here's the problem, okay? You got information coming in through your eyes and your nose and your mouth and your ears and all these different places. There's tremendous bits of information coming in. Your brain isn't actually great all the time. So it's not as precise as we'd like it to be. And this process of moving information from your short-term memory to your long-term memory, that's what we think dreaming actually represents. That, as well as emotional processing. So if you have a kind of a weird dream, like let's say that you walk into the kitchen and your dog is eating a bowl of spaghetti with your second grade teacher at the kitchen table, here's what probably happened. You probably had Italian for dinner and you want to remember that that place was really good because you want to order the fettuccine Alfredo one more time. Your dog probably jumped on your bed in the middle of the night and you're probably trying to remember to keep the dog out of the bedroom. And your second grader might have been talking about what they learned in school, which triggered a memory for you about your second grade teacher. And that's how all of that kind of comes together, right? So the bizarre nature of dreams can be very, very interesting, but usually it's innocuous. It usually doesn't have much of an effect. Now, to be clear, there are dreams that are quite scary. There are nightmares, there are trauma-related dreams, there are stress dreams, things like that. I don't have time to go into dreams only because quite frankly, I could do an entire lecture on dreams. Who knows, maybe you guys will have me back and I'll do that. But dreams do occur during REM sleep as well as several other functions. One of the things that many people don't know is that, in fact, you become incredibly relaxed while you're dreaming. In fact, so relaxed that you become paralyzed. Now, many people might wonder, why on earth would you become paralyzed? So this is the part of the lecture where I would reach out into the crowd and I would say, hey, anybody, do you want to take a guess? And so here we would say, maybe Dr. Nancy would say, well, Dr. Bruce, maybe it's so that you don't get hurt or act out your dreams, which would be the correct answer. And so I'm going to digress for a second and tell you about a patient I have where this mechanism of paralysis does not work. So I'm from an area, as I said, in just outside Atlanta, Georgia, called Sandy Springs, Georgia. And if you're from Sandy Springs, there's a decent sized hunting community. And if you're a hunter, you know that if you shoot a doe and you don't kill it, you have to either slit its throat or crack its neck. It's the most humane thing to do. So one of my patients is a hunter, very prolific hunter, and he woke up with his wife's head ready to crack her neck. I'm not making this up. This is a true story. So right about now, usually a bunch of hands start raising in the audience and I start to get some questions. The number one question I always get is, did he kill her? The good news is no lives have been spared for the telling of this story. And so no, she is still alive. The second question I always get is, are they still married? Interestingly enough, they are still married. She is a very patient woman. But what we discovered is that he had something called REM behavior disorder. REM behavior disorder is a very interesting yet rare disorder. With one medication, we were able to silence the behavior, keep her safe, keep him sleeping, no problems. But the most interesting factor was that in REM behavior disorder, in 35% of the cases, it's a precursor for Parkinson's syndrome. And he was one of them. And so we actually, 10 years before we saw any type of Parkinsonian symptomatology, we were able to get him into neurology and literally change the course of his disease. And so I bring up the point to let you know that, I guess, to be slightly serious for a moment, if sleep is messed up for you, something's going on. Sleep is a window into your health. So if you're not sleeping well, if you're not waking up feeling as though you're refreshed and ready to meet the day, maybe there's something mental health going on, maybe there's something physical health going on, but your sleep is trying to tell you that it's something that you need to look at. So what are we going to do if we want to get better sleep, or we have difficult time falling asleep, or there's so many supplements out there and all these different things that we would want to learn? Dr. Bruce, please, please, please take it all away and teach us what we need to know. So magnesium turns out to be one of the most important supplements out there. Why? Well, number one, most people seem to be deficient in magnesium, which is interesting. It appears as though magnesium isn't coming up through the root stalks. And so our bodies don't make magnesium. We have to eat it. And it's very essential to over 300 different things that our bodies do. As far as sleep is concerned, it helps us relax. It helps our muscles relax. And that's going to be incredibly, incredibly important. Many people tell me that when they get in bed at night, they feel tense. And so they end up taking some magnesium to help them. A lot of them there's a powder out there that people can, use. And I think it's called Calm or something. There, see, we got already people raising their hand talking about, let me teach you a different way to get your magnesium that's a little bit better and a little bit more fun. I call it banana tea. So you take one whole, so many people don't know it, but bananas are like nature's sleeping pills, and they're loaded with magnesium. But the peel has 3 times the amount of magnesium as the fruit itself. So take one whole banana and wash it off. Cut off the tip and the stem, cut it in half, leave the skin on and the fruit in it. So all we've done is we've washed the outside of a banana, we've cut off the tip and the stem, then we've got 2 halves, fruit in, peel on. Drop it into 3 cups or 4 cups of boiling water and boil it for about 5 or 6 minutes, basically until the banana turns brown. And then drink the water. It's loaded with phytosteroids. It will help you absorb the magnesium so much better. My daughter says it's got quite a pungent banana taste. She says, Dad, it's very banana-y. I'm just letting you know. So you have to like bananas for it to be worthwhile for you. But here's the thing is it won't interact with any medications. It won't, you can give it to seniors, you can give it to kids. I got one mom and she pours it into popsicle molds and she gives it to her kids after dinner. They have no idea and they're out like a light. It's awesome. Okay, that's all the science that we're going to do. Now we're going to do all practical information. So I'm going to teach you something called the Bedtime Calculator. So when was the last time somebody told you when to go to bed? What were you, like 8, 10 years old, something like that, right? Well, as adults, the most variable time that we have is our bedtime. Most of us don't have a very variable wake up time because it's socially determined, right? So in my house, it's what time does my dog get up or my daughter, things like that. So we have things that wake us up on a fairly regular basis, but our bedtime is something that isn't always very consistent. So what I tell people is take your normal wake up time and subtract 7.5 hours, and this becomes your optimal bedtime. Now you might be wondering, hold on a second, Michael, why 7.5 hours? So remember on the 3rd slide where we talked about the how long a signal was, or a cycle was rather. So remember, how long was a cycle? 90 minutes, right? And how many cycles do people have? 5. What is 5 times 9? Nobody said there'd be math, right? I fooled you guys on this one. So 5 times 90 is 450 minutes. And if you divide 450 minutes by 60, you get 7.5 hours. So number one, 8 hours is a myth. The math doesn't even work. I mean, look at, we just did the math together. 8 hours is a myth, okay? That's number one. Number two, you don't need 8 hours. You need the amount of sleep that you need to wake up and feel refreshed. Going to bed consistently will help you find that. So as an example, if you normally wake up at 6:30 in the morning and you subtract 7.5 hours, now you're going to bed at 11 o'clock at night. It works really, really well the more consistent you are. And that includes the weekends, guys. I'm just saying, you got to get up at the same time, even on the weekends. Actually, I'm going to go back to that slide for a second because I want to tell you about a study that just came out about 3 weeks ago, looking at the consistency of our sleep. And so for folks out there who think, well, I can get 5 or 6 hours during the week and then catch up on my sleep on the weekends, you absolutely, positively cannot. The most definitive study I have ever seen came out about 3 or 4 weeks ago, where they had a group of 26 people. They were sleeping 5.5 hours during the week, 8 hours on the weekend. They monitored their mood, their memory, their focus, and their attention for 6 weeks. Every single person, it went down every single week. The most interesting thing is when you talked to the participants the day after they got their makeup sleep, so on Monday morning, they felt fantastic, but when you looked at their scores, they were dropping like stones. So people don't know how tired they are. They feel good because they've gotten that kind of refreshing feeling, but their actual memory, focus, mood, attention, straight to the gutter. So please, please, please wake up at the exact same time if you can every single. I don't even care if you don't go to bed at the same time. Just wake up at the same time every single day. I promise you, you'll do great with it. Now, let's say, for example, that you did only get 5 hours last night and you got a big presentation with your boss today, or you got something going on and you really want to be alert for it. I'm going to teach you the hack of all sleep hacks. I call it the Napa Latte. So take a 6-ounce cup of drip black coffee, no cream, no sugar. Add 3 ice cubes merely to cool it down. Then slug it as quickly as you can and take a 25-minute nap. Remember when we were talking about adenosine in my very first slide? And I said to you how adenosine and caffeine were only off by 1 molecule. Remember, adenosine is that stuff that accumulates in your brain. Here's how this works. It's 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Adenosine has accumulated in your brain. You are tired and you are not sure if you're going to make it. So what do? You slug your coffee and you close your eyes. When you close your eyes, you fall asleep. You burn through that adenosine for about 25 minutes. You wake up. Caffeine fits perfectly into that receptor site. You are good for 4 hours, guaranteed. It's unbelievable. Please do not do a Napa Latte every day. It's not designed for that, but it is designed for that kind of escape hatch. If you really need to get alert fast, this is a great way to do it. So now I'm going to tell you about a bunch of things that you can do during the daytime that can help your sleep at night. Because, usually people don't think about what can I do during the day that might help me at night. Number 1, let's talk about alcohol. I know, everybody doesn't like it when I talk about alcohol. But to be clear, there's a really big difference between going to sleep and passing out. Okay, guys? So we want to avoid the passing out. Alcohol is the #1 sleep aid in the world. However, it is not good for your sleep. What we've discovered is the timing of the alcohol. When your last sip to when you close your eyes, that amount of time appears to be incredibly important. It takes the average human 1 hour to digest 1 alcoholic beverage. So here's my rule. Have 1 glass of wine, have 1 glass of water, because remember, alcohol is a diuretic and you need a well-hydrated body to sleep. Wait 1 hour. If you have 2 glasses of wine, have 2 glasses of water and wait 2 hours. Here's where the problem comes in. Lots of people don't want to stop at 2. Stopping at 2 actually makes the most sense, because when you have more than 2 drinks in you, your body spikes cortisol and you end up having energy, right? And so you don't want to be an energetic drunk trying to go to bed. It isn't going to work out particularly well. So as a general guideline, I'd say limit alcohol 3 hours before bed, but remember, use the 1-for-1 rule and it will help you out. Now, I'm a humongous fan of exercise for sleep. And don't forget, it's the best way to improve deep sleep and quality sleep. But if you do it too close to bedtime, your core body temperature raises. It makes it very difficult to fall asleep. So exercise daily, but do me a favor, limit exercise 4 hours before bed. Now, many people turn to me and they're like, Michael, I basically sit on the couch until my head is bobbing, and then I go upstairs and I try to fall asleep. Not really the best maneuver. What I do is I tell people all the time, you need some runway to land the plane. Okay. So giving yourself some time before bed makes a lot of sense. What I do is I go to bed around midnight. At 11, I chop that hour up into 3 20-minute segments. 20 minutes for just stuff I got to do, 20 minutes for hygiene, and then 20 minutes for some form of meditation, relaxation, or prayer. Something that really allows your body to get there. But to be fair, it's not so easy all the time. You can't just go, and then pass out. It's really not good for your sleep. One of the things that I recommend that people do in that final 20 minutes, whether it's meditation, relaxation, or prayer, is also something positive, like a gratitude list. Now, you might be saying to yourself, hold on, this guy's been hard science, and now all of a sudden he's talking gratitude. What's going on here? Believe it or not, there is some serious data to show that optimism before bed not only helps you fall asleep more quickly, but gives you more positive dreams. It's awesome. And quite frankly, I can't think of a better thing to do before bed than hang out with your partner and talk about things that you're grateful for and have a great night's sleep. So it's definitely something that you should think about, and it is very positive, and there's data behind it. Now, if you are a television watcher before bed, or you have lights on before bed, please, please, please do yourself a favor and wear some blue light blocking glasses. I see people pulling them out and showing me their glasses. Yeah, I'm proud of you, but I've got some bad news. Some people have shown me blue light blocking glasses that are clear and not amber in color. So let's talk about the differences between those two, because we need to understand them. So these are the ones that I have. I think I look like Bono, right? Or maybe like Elvis Costello, Nick Cage, maybe, they're always wearing those colored glasses. So here's the deal. There's 3 ways to block blue light. One is with a film or that will block the frequency of blue light. The second is for brightness. That's where the orange color comes in. If you have glasses that do not have the orange color, you are still getting blue light. The other one has to do with the angle. So you want to have something that really covers a large part of around the area around your eye so that you're not getting extra light in. But blue light blocking glasses, I'm a huge, huge fan of. I am the only sleep doctor in the universe that says it's okay to fall asleep with the television on. Yep, you heard it here. I'm giving you permission. Why? I'll tell you. My wife falls asleep with the TV on. She has our entire relationship. I've never been able to break her of that habit. I tried, and I got kicked out of the bedroom. So then I decided to study her. And what I discovered was that, in fact, she doesn't watch it. She listens to it. So what happens is she, out of the corner of her ear, she listens to the TV. So if you set the timer, which, by the way, 99% of people have timers built into their televisions, you should be just fine, I can assure you. And then the final thing, stay cool in bed, right? A cool environment is the best environment for sleep. There's no question about it. 18 degrees is Celsius. It's about 68 for folks out there who don't know that. And then consider how to get the best night's sleep. So what I've done is I've actually put together a 5-step program so that everybody can follow. So you don't have to remember every single thing I said, but let's talk about it real quick. Step number 1, select one wake-up time and stick to it. Step number 2, stop caffeine by 2 p.m. Step number 3, limit alcohol 3 hours before bed. Step number 4, limit exercise 4 hours before bed, but exercise daily. And number 5, get 15 minutes of sunlight every single morning. Why do you get the sunlight? The sunlight helps turn off the blue light in your brain, and it actually helps turn the melatonin faucet off. So very important for eliminating brain fog is getting that 15 minutes of sunlight right after you wake up. Also, throw in a glass of water. It'll be helpful as well, because remember, sleep in and of itself is a dehydrative event. So with that, I'm going to open it up for, can I open it up for questions? Is that okay thing to do now? Right, we're good. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to hang out with everybody, and there we go. And let's talk sleep. So I'm gonna, they'll be in the chat. Oh, gosh.
Hi,
Hey.
I'm Erin with Diversity Women Media and Rise Equity. So yeah, let's go ahead and drop some questions in the chat. If you have a question for Dr. Bruce, take advantage of him being here. I think one question is, getting up at the same time every day. There are some circumstances in which you don't. You have children, they disrupt your sleep, they come in earlier. For example, I have 2 small children at home. So best of intentions, try and get up at the same time. But what about going back to sleep? How does that affect your sleep?
Sure. So there's number one, it depends upon how you get woken up. Right. And so if you've got a screaming child, as opposed to, a truck goes by your house, right? Those are two, or a dog barking, right? Mm-hmm. Those are 2 kind of different scenarios that you're going to have to deal with. So number one, let's talk about children and sleep. And so generally speaking, most kids do not really require any attendance in the middle of the night. They're getting up because they want attention, because they're lonely, because they want to hang out with mom and dad. My favorite thing was when my daughter would come in the middle of the night, and her little eyeballs would be right at the mattress, and I could hear her breathing, and I would, you're lying there and you just open your eyes, and she would sit there and say, "Daddy, why do you get to sleep with somebody and I don't?" That was her big, that was her, she was like, that looks like fun. I want to hang out. Like, let's go. And I'm like, get in your room. So like, here's the deal is what I did with my children, straight up bribery. Okay. And so I used Hot Wheels for my son. So he loved Hot Wheels cars. And so the game was, we put a digital clock in his room and we said, when it says 630, you can walk out of there and you can come into my room and get a Hot Wheels car. And that's what we did. And it worked. At 10 Hot Wheels cars later, we had no more problems with my child. I mean, to be clear, it wasn't just, it wasn't quite that easy, but it was actually pretty easy. So thinking through some of those ideas can be important, but how do you get back to sleep is really the question that you asked me. And so a couple of different things. The number one statistic that you need to know is in order to get into a state of unconsciousness, you need a heart rate of 60 or below. Let me repeat that, 60 or below. So anything that you are doing that elevates your heart rate, like sitting up, standing up, walking, talking, all of those things that would elevate your heart rate above 60 would actually make it more difficult to fall back asleep. So when you do return to bed, the best thing that you can do is relax. My favorite thing to do is what's called 4-7-8 breathing. Breathing in for a count of 4, you hold it for a count of 7, breathe out for a count of 8. This is a technique that's been used by the Navy SEALs for decades, and it drops their heart rate almost immediately. There's some very specific reasons that they need to do that. So it's certainly something that I would definitely talk with people about. I see a question here from Jeannie. She says, get in bed exhausted, can't fall asleep. What can I do? Is it okay for me to answer that?
Please, let's go ahead and answer Jeannie's. And I think we answered actually the first one about how to get back to sleep. So that was a 2-for-1 there. So let's go. How do you get back into if you're exhausted?
So here's what happens a lot of times. So remember when I was talking before about drive and rhythm, right? So when somebody's exhausted and they get in bed, they have high drive, but if they get in bed early, they have low rhythm. And that makes it crazy, right? Have you ever been like working out in the garden or gone for a hike? You're physically exhausted and you're like, yes, I'm going to sneak into bed. It's going to be 8 o'clock. Nobody's going to know. And then you just lie there staring at the ceiling because you're physically exhausted, but your brain is not settling down. This has to do with your circadian rhythm and the level of consistency. And so quite frankly, if you get in bed exhausted and you can't fall asleep, you're not supposed to be in bed. Would be my argument. Now, to be fair, if you just got off an airplane, you could be jet lagged, and that could certainly be an issue. That would be something that has something to do with it as well.
Let's tie that into Jay Wild's question then. How do you turn off your brain? Because we are still somewhat in a pandemic here. We are here talking about self-care and wellness. So how do we turn our brain off with all the what ifs, if all the stress that we're experiencing?
So I think there's I think there's a lot of things that we can do to turn off our brain. It depends on what you're comfortable with. So we've got everything from over-the-counter sleep aids, we've got prescription sleep aids, we've got alcohol, we've got cannabis. There's a whole host of things that people use to, quote, turn off their brain, right? Some are more healthy than others. I would argue that there's quite a few ways that you can turn off your brain that would be healthy. Number one, I like to do a worry journal. So you might be wondering, what's that? So this is where you take all the stuff that's flying around in your brain and you actually write it out. So you draw a line down the center of a page, all your problems on one side, and then one step toward a solution for the problem. It doesn't have to be the whole problem solved, but it gives your brain the opportunity to say, okay, I'm going to address this problem tomorrow. I'm going to do step 1. It's all I can do. So I can close the paper, put it away. I don't have to worry about this problem because I know I've got a plan together to do this. Please do not do this right before bed because it's too alerting. Do it at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon or maybe just after dinner. The time before bed should really be used for pleasurable activities. So watch TV, read. You don't want to roughhouse with your kids. You definitely want to hang out with your kids if you can. But like, I know a lot of dads who come home at 8 o'clock, after work, and they're like, yeah, it's wrestle time. Let's go. Right. And here's what happens is you rile your kids up and they don't want to go to bed after that, but you want to go have dinner and put them down and things like that. So good to spend time with kids at bed, but roughhousing and that kind of stuff is probably not the best thing to do just before bed. Other things to do to keep your brain from getting distracted, there are a whole host of distraction techniques. Count backwards from 300 by threes. It's mathematically so complicated, you can't think of anything else. It's so damn boring. You're out like a light. There's a whole host of things, crossword puzzles, word games, things like that are all things that will definitely work for people in the middle of the night, or a nice breathing exercise or meditation. That's what I have a tendency to use, is that breathing, or I do a progressive muscle relaxation where I start to relax everything from my toes, then to my feet, then to my ankles, then to my calves. And you just kind of walk yourself up your muscle groups. You'll be out in no time, I can assure you.
That's great. So let's talk about some deep sleep here. There's a question about deep sleep and REM sleep. Are they the same thing? Somebody uses auto sleep.
Yeah, they're not even close. I'm not sure. I use auto sleep. I'm not sure what auto sleep is. It sounds like a sleep tracking mechanism of some sort. So to be clear, most of the trackers are not particularly accurate. Sleep is a very complicated metric, not something that can actually be, easily measured. Steps, no problem. That's an easy thing to measure, but it's certainly difficult to do sleep. And so don't always live and die by the sleep trackers, but deep sleep and REM sleep are very, very different. Remember, deep sleep is your physical restoration and REM sleep is your mental restoration.
Wonderful. I think we have time for one more question here. Before we do end though, we'll make sure to send out the presentation. So if you attend this conference, we'll send that presentation out. We'll go ahead and get you Dr. Bruce's email address as well here. Dr. Bruce, if you want to throw that in the chat while we go through this last question here. Why do people get sleepy in the middle of the day? What causes that? Especially on, say, overcast, rainy, cold, snowy days.
Sure. So there's a whole host of things. So number one, on weather days like that, it's due to lack of light. And so remember, light is energy. Light is medicine for us. And so as light comes on, it gives us that energy. And so if it's overcast, rainy, things like that, it certainly is going to make it a little bit easier for us because of the lack of light. But also in the middle of the day, we have a very small temperature spike, which is then causes a temperature drop. So right before you go to bed around 10:30 at night, here's what happens is your core body temperature rises, and then it hits a peak and it falls. Okay. That falling releases melatonin. Another one of those spikes happens around 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It's very small. It happens for about 15 minutes, but it's just enough to make you feel sleepy after lunch. So instead of grabbing a Snickers or a coffee or something like that, believe it or not, if you go outside, your brain cannot produce melatonin in the presence of sunlight. That's why blue light is bad to have at night. So if you can preempt it, like if you know, hey, I always get sleepy around 1 o'clock, go outside at like 12:45, get some fresh air, get a little sunshine. You won't feel sleepy anymore.
That's a great way. So as soon as we're done with this conference today, we have a few more sessions after this one, and we'll encourage you to go outside and get some of that melatonin.
There you go.
Michael Bruce, thank you so much for being with us here today. To everyone, we encourage you to go back to the lobby and into the main auditorium for our final keynote of the afternoon. Thank you so much and have a great day.
Sweet dreams.